Full Bloom is brought to you in part by the following. Welcome to Full Bloom, the award-winning show that celebrates life. Here's your host, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome to Full Bloom. I'm Zita Christian. Tonight we are filming part 4 in the 4-part series on dementia and caregiving. My guest is Pamela Atwood, who is the Director of Dementia Care Services at Hebrew Healthcare in West Hartford, Connecticut. Pam, welcome back to the show.
Hi Zita, it's so good to be back.
And I've been so looking forward to this particular segment of the series because tonight, among other things, you are going to answer viewer questions, and we did get some, didn't we?
We got quite a few. We really did.
Which is really, really nice. Now, I know from a comment you made the other day that we were talking about Alzheimer's disease and the fact that it carries so much fear, and that some people actually fear Alzheimer's more than they fear cancer or even death. Is that?
Some people, yes, and I think research has shown that actually a majority of people fear it significantly, that it is something they fear more than dying itself because of the frailty and dependence that most people associate Alzheimer's with. And it is a devastating disease, no two ways about it. The hope that we hope to impart tonight is that there are resources out there, that there's a lot of information that we know now about how to make this a quality life and hope for the future through research.
And I am hopeful. I have to say that. And just so the viewers know, we're taping this in May of 2013. So, and the show will be up on the YouTube channel. You may see it at some time in the future. So the information that we give today about whatever the latest research is, it's latest as of spring of 2013.
As of today, because I did another research review today before coming here to the studio.
Thank you. You are good. You are so good. Okay, I just also want to do a quick overview for the benefit of people who might be watching this episode, part 4 of the series, but didn't see the first 3. So just a very, very quick rundown of what we covered. Overview of dementia and caregiving, the need for training the caregiver. That's the biggie. Different styles of caregiving, those uncomfortable questions that you have with family, especially that one about driving.
Right.
Pam, yeah. Pain management for patients with dementia. I was so surprised at that one, and I shouldn't have been, and yet it's an obvious thing, but hadn't thought about it. The particularly devastating effect of patients who have dementia who are also combat veterans. Yes. Dementia and intimacy in general, dementia and sexuality, and so much more. So those are things we've already covered, and that was a lot.
Quick update.
Yes.
Our research that we did at Hebrew Healthcare on pain and Alzheimer's and agitation, we've been accepted to do a presentation at the International Alzheimer's Association Conference in July. We are so excited about it.
Oh my gosh, Pam, congratulations
thank
to you and to Hebrew Healthcare.
We're very excited.
Wow.
Unfortunately, the international conference is in Boston this year, so next year it's in Madrid. 2 years ago it was in Hawaii. This year it's in Boston. But I love Boston.
Yeah, we do love Boston, absolutely.
And it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Well, huge congratulations.
Thank you.
So, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about questions that viewers sent to you. And we have a lot, so I'm going to pick some that I sort of picked as I think the favorite ones in terms of the information.
Yes.
All right, let's get started with, when do you know when it's time to seek additional help? And most especially, what are the markers that the individual and caregiver would be better served in a medical or memory support facility?
That is one of my favorite questions because it really is different for everyone. I always say caregivers know in their gut when it's time. They just know. And every family is different. So for our family, when my grandmother became incontinent and was having a hard time swallowing at dinner every evening, and it just became so consuming for us as a family, these medical needs that weren't extraordinary. My goodness, I know many, many families who have done much more in-depth end-stage care at home. But for our family, it was too much. So everybody has a different threshold. To me, one of the things when I'm helping a family is I want to make sure, number one, is the question really asking permission? And many, many times people will say, well, how do you know when it's time? And I say, if you're looking for permission, I give you permission. It's okay to do it. It's okay to make that decision. No one makes this decision lightly. No one says, I'm just going to put mom in a nursing home. No one puts a person anywhere. You know, if we could really look at the language there, it sounds like you've put your keys in the wrong place. You don't just put a person somewhere. These are heart-wrenching decisions. But for everybody, it's different. So I can give you a checklist, and if you go on, we have a brand new website. www.agingcareacademy.org. So in previous shows, we had talked about education for confident caregivers. We spoke about Aging Care Academy, and as of this Sunday, we are going to be rolling out officially the new website. agingcareacademy.org.
Okay.
And on that website, we have a checklist, and you can go down different domains about medications, about safety, about fears or behaviors, so that if you check one, or nutrition, one answer in each domain means that it's probably time for more help. Whether or not that means a medical facility or an institution, that's different case by case. But it at least gives families a guide so they can help make those decisions.
All right, that's important. And I think on one hand, that might be frustrating to say there's no definitive answer. On the other hand, it has to be liberating to be able to have some control. Yes. And realize that what's right for one is not right for everyone.
I never worry about the families who say, when is it time? I worry about the families when they say, I'm never doing that. Because people who make the promise don't sleep well at night.
Interesting point. People who make the promise don't sleep well. Okay. Another question from a viewer. We have asked the primary care physician to have a physical workup done, as you suggested, and the primary care physician agrees regarding some tests for the confusion she is exhibiting, but mom cancels at the last minute every time. Help,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, these are very difficult situations because ultimately what you're seeing in that cancellation is actually a person communicating insight. This is a person who knows there's concern and, in my estimation, is really looking for some security and some control over their situation. So they may have very clear insight that there's a problem and they are working very hard to keep it under control. And, you know, in my family we always say the opposite of inept is apt. And at one point we had my mom who had some increasing changes in her mentation. I didn't think it was Alzheimer's disease, but I certainly thought it was worth looking into. And she said, I just need to focus a little harder on being apt. Well, you know, if you can focus on it and you can make those changes, fine, and you're not forgetting to pick up the grandchildren after soccer practice or what have you, then that's fine. But when it gets to the point that it really is having an impact on people's daily life, including the individual, the patient, then it's time to get more help. In that kind of a situation, and again, every family is different. You know the dynamics with your own parent or your spouse or your sibling. You might sit down and say, I'm worried about you. I'm concerned that in the past you've always taken an active role in being well. And I think that you should take your doctor's advice and go get this checked. Or maybe they don't even want to admit that there's a memory problem. You could say, these are problems that could be caused by thyroid, which is true. Or your eyes, or your hearing, or a number of other sensory conditions. So let's get this checked. Because many things that affect memory are treatable and reversible. So we need to find out exactly what's going on. If all else fails, blame the doctor. And, you know, a lot of the physicians, I'm sure, who are watching this have heard this time and time again, and most of them don't mind. Yes, the doctor's insistent that you have a regular checkup. It's time for you to have a review. And a lot of times the doctor's office will even, you know, say, it's time, you must come in. And that's true for most of us who take medications. Many times the doctors insist on seeing us at least annually. So sometimes you can use a different excuse to get the person into the doctor's office without forcing the memory acknowledgement, the problem with the memory, to be acknowledged.
I think, though, Pam, the idea of, well, if I go to have this checked, what if the news is bad? I mean, I think sometimes there is that, like, rather be in that cloud of denial, that fog, rather than deal with something. And yet at the same time, what if the problem is a lack of oxygen or a medication side effect or something else?
In an ideal world, what I would really love to hear is we saw the show Full Bloom, and we went and we talked to Mom, and we had a heartfelt talk with her, and we reassured her that she was going to be safe, that we were always going to try to help her, that we were going to get the best support, and we were always going to be there for her, and she finally let us take her to the doctor. That'd be ideal. That would be outstanding news. The fact of the matter is that doesn't always happen. If it can happen, that's the ideal.
The thing, though, Pam, is, I mean, then it opens up, let's say that happens, that ideal situation happens. Then the door opens up to say, okay, the problem is something else, and okay, you get it treated. That's great. But what if the diagnosis is, yes, there are clear signs of dementia, clear signs of Alzheimer's. And I think that's the door. It's like what's behind door number 1, 2, and 3.
But you don't open all 3 at the same time. There are different doors there. You deal with what you know, one step at a time. It's like telling kids about the birds and the bees. First, you only answer the questions they're asking. You don't give them the whole litany about the birds and the bees when they're 3.
That's another show. Yeah. You're right.
But if we're talking about what are Mom's fears, what are the caregiver's fears? Sure, for a caregiver, this means a whole new thing. Now I have to don a new hat and I have to change my whole life. This is overwhelming for all of us. We deal with what we know, one step at a time. So you say, Mom, let's go to the doctor, let's find out what it is. And if we have to see a specialist, we'll get the best one. Period, end of conversation. Deal with what you know first, one step at a time. Otherwise, you do what we do in my family a lot, awfulizing and catastrophizing.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my goodness, I can see down the road, next 10, 15, 20 years, oh my gosh, you make yourself sick doing that.
Yeah.
So a smart caregiver and a smart patient will take it one step at a time.
Okay. Next question.
And if you need my help on that, to be your cheerleader one step at a time, call me, email me, whatever.
I think, because I have some friends who are going through this, and it's difficult.
It is. It's
and that's putting it mildly.
Yes.
Okay. Next question. I know it's not uncommon, but our family struggles with embarrassing behaviors in public when we go out with Mom, who has Lewy body dementia. Any suggestions?
Yes. This is a recent subject of a few articles that I've seen in the popular media. And I think that first, let's understand the genesis of the problem. First of all, we're talking about a neurological brain disease, whether it's Alzheimer's, vascular, or Lewy body dementia. We're talking about neurological changes in regions of the brain that control behaviors. If you think about going with a child to the grocery store and they start having a temper tantrum in the middle of the grocery store because you won't get them the Teddy Grahams that they want or the, Fruit Loops that they want. And at some point you have to drop all of your groceries, leave them in the cart, and walk out of the store. Horribly embarrassing. But we've all been there, we've all done that, we understand. With an adult, we're talking about dignity issues, which is why it's so embarrassing, because we're concerned about the dignity for that individual. And not everybody has experienced that. So they look at people as if, oh, what's wrong with that man? Or, oh, what's wrong with that woman? And what is the problem there? And it becomes this big scene and this big drama. 2 things that we can do. First of all, for the moment, we can either just simply protect mom, dad, sister, brother, whoever it is, parent, spouse, and escort them out to the car or wherever. It depends on what public situation you're in. And for some of us, we do have cards that we carry that says, please be patient. The person I'm with has dementia. And on the back it has information and where to get more information or what have you. At a restaurant, for instance, if you're at a restaurant, you can hand the waitress subtly that card. One of the articles that I just read about this actually felt that that was horrible, that was a terrible way to handle this situation because it could be so embarrassing for the individual with the memory problem. Their solution was to only not go out or to only entertain people in their house. To me, that's almost worse. Everybody's different, every situation's different, but that's much more isolating because now you can't go out. you have to find a balance. Now, if your loved one has embarrassing or difficult behaviors or situations or incontinence or whatever, maybe what you need to do is adapt the activities. So instead of going out to a restaurant, you do a picnic at a park, so that you're still going out, but it is a more controlled environment for their dignity as well as how overwhelming. So you have to look at the cause. Is this because this person's behavior is because it's overstimulating, or it's too confusing, or there's too much noise? Maybe you choose a quieter restaurant, or go at a time when it's not as crowded. I was at a restaurant recently, just last weekend, and it was a popular restaurant. We were in the main part of the restaurant. It was totally overwhelming. We were right underneath the speaker with this loud booming music. People across tables couldn't even hear each other speaking. My sister simply went, my sister's even younger than I am, went out to the waitress and said, I hate to be a burden, but could we maybe go on the patio? Is it more quiet? And she said, well, it's quiet, but it's kind of boring. Boring works for us. That's fine sometimes when we want to speak with each other. So make accommodations and adapt the activity, and be prepared that you may need to start to limit the length of activities. So if the problem becomes after you've been out shopping for an hour, you may not be able to take the person out for an hour. You may have to only take them out for a shorter time, and you have to adapt that way. But there are lots of ways that we can deal with that, because we can't change or prevent the behaviors. All we can do is manage the situation.
Okay, so that leads me to two things. Do you know, I mean, is it a common fact that the patient, the person wants to go out, wants to be in places like this? And the other thing is something you mentioned on an earlier show, and that was about how it's our personal reaction that has such an effect on how the patient, the stigma.
Yes.
Could you speak to that?
Absolutely. I think that, first of all, we as caregivers define quality of life differently than at a certain stage the person with dementia does. So, and a lot of times in later stages we start to see people kind of shut down. Their whole world becomes smaller. That's not because of a lack of care or attention or a lack of engagement or stimulating activities. That's because that's all their brain can handle. So now I have many things. I'm involved in scouts with my kids and sports and school stuff, and I teach and I work full time, and I'm here tonight, and I have all of these different activities. When I'm very stressed, my world gets smaller because that's all I can handle. When I have dementia, that's like a constant stress because I have to try to keep track of things. So the first things that go are the things that are social, the things that are difficult, like balancing your checkbook or what have you. You start to go to fewer parties, smaller parties, or just have small intimate gatherings, because that's what's natural. The person's world gets smaller. A lot of caregivers think, oh, this is terrible. No, this is the individual's way of saying, here's what I can cope with.
This is my comfort level now.
Exactly. So we have to look at that. We have to not look at that as a symptom, but as a form of communication. This is a person's way of telling us what they can handle. What a behavior, if we look at this as all behavior has meaning, which is our mantra in dementia care, all behavior has meaning. Okay. You have to look at these behaviors and say, what's triggered this? What's gone on? And then adapt our expectations to meet that person's abilities. The stigma is important, though, too, because it's our reaction that goes, oh, this was so awful. I can't believe this happened.
Yeah.
If we do that in front of that individual, now they feel crazy and stupid. And those are the two things we have to always protect, because those are their two biggest fears.
Being crazy and being stupid, or being perceived?
Both.
Or both. Okay, well, of course.
The confabulation, the stories that they make up about, well, my daughter is stealing my jewelry, is because I'm afraid I'm crazy, because I don't know where I put it.
Okay.
And if other people are perceiving me that way, that's again when I have to work very hard to protect the fact that I'm not crazy or stupid. We see this all the time. I facilitate a support group for people with early stage dementia. I have a brand new gentleman who just joined our group, and he said, let me show you. And he stands up, and he's a big, strapping guy, and he had me feel his bicep. Huge. I mean, the guy is solid. And he says, and my brain doesn't work. And I feel cheated. Oh. And it's so incredible that he can articulate this. But by the end of the support group, we were all laughing, we're hugging each other, we're having a good time, and he no longer feels alone, because he knows he's not crazy and stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Pam, these are hard conversations.
They are. But there's still so much hope.
So important.
So important.
Okay. Let's do one more here. What are some loving and compassionate ways to encourage an individual to seek medical help or diagnosis? In my case, the person's memory lapses and serious forgetfulness is apparent to everyone but himself. He is, I believe, in denial of what to the rest of us is obvious, but I don't know the best way to influence him.
That's a great way to put that, the best way to influence him. I love that because that is saying, I'm not here to control you. I want to help you make a decision. And I would say that really you're on the edge, the cusp of what you need to do, and go with your gut. You're trying to influence this person to take care of himself. You're trying to say, without embarrassing him, look, Janie's noticed it, Susie's noticed it, the mailman's noticed it. How can you don't want to embarrass him and say, look at all these people who think you're losing it, Dad.
Yeah.
You got to go to the doctor. That's cruel. So the author here, the writer, the viewer is absolutely correct in their instinct to say, how can I influence? How can I help that person make the decision? Mm-hmm. I would probably sit down with that person and say, I don't want to intrude. I don't want you to be embarrassed. And actually, I've had this conversation with a family member to say, I don't want you to be uncomfortable. We don't ever have to speak about it again, but I need to let you know my concerns. I'm worried. I'm concerned. And it would help me sleep better at night if we could go get this checked. If you don't want me to go, that's fine. But I need you to go get this checked. A lot of times when you personalize it, that this is a concern that I have, I'm worried. I, see all of these things on TV or read all of these things on the internet or hear all of these things on the radio, whatever it is. I'm concerned for you, mom, dad, brother, sister, spouse. And that way, it's my worry, it's not your failure. Because in saying, what's the matter? How come you haven't admitted this yet? Because look at all these other people. We're saying you're a failure. You're crazy. You're stupid. You're a failure. None of that is good.
No. Or true.
Absolutely. This is not someone's failure to take care of themselves or not eat enough blueberries or, not do enough word finds and crossword puzzles. This is a neurological disease.
Pam, a couple statistics I wanted to be sure that we include tonight. And I just want to be sure, if you're just joining us now, this is Full Bloom. I'm Zita Christian, and this is part 4 in a 4-part series on dementia and caregiving. And my guest is Pam Atwood. She's the Director of Dementia Care Services at Hebrew Healthcare in West Hartford, Connecticut. So, a couple statistics we've talked about before. I want to be sure that we include them here. Of the 10 big killers of older adults, death from 9 of those killers have decreased, while death from Alzheimer's has increased by 66%.
Yes.
80% of caregivers describe their experience as rewarding, but 65% of those caregivers die before the person for whom they're caring.
Absolutely.
Frightening statistics. And because of that, I want to use the time we have left to ask you to give me some good news.
Some good news.
Please, tell me there's some good news.
There are so many areas of research, and I always tell people I cannot wait to be out of a job. I can't wait, and I will be screaming it from the roof of Hebrew Healthcare saying, we're done, open the doors, it's cured. We've got a long way to go, though. We really do. The problem is we still don't know what causes Alzheimer's disease. So researchers are doing a lot of research based on theories or hypotheses of what they believe are the key factors involved. 3 basic processes they look at. The beta amyloid, which is the protein that is in the plaque that's forming on the neurons in the brain. So that's one specific target. Tau proteins are the next one, and that is the chemical that holds the neurons together. Those taus break down, tau, T-A-U, breaks down, collapsing the neuron. That causes the tangle, they believe. And then the last process is inflammation, and they're not sure exactly what's happening with that. Is the inflammation causing the process? Is it a result of the process? What role does it play? But more and more research is pointing to a connection with inflammation. That then brings out new targets for what is the cause of all of these 3 factors. So they're looking at things like insulin. A lot of researchers and how we process insulin in the brain now consider Alzheimer's may be type 3 diabetes. I mean, it's got that much of a connection. Yes. There are
Not surprised.
also very strong links with cholesterol, and brand new research has just come out linking not only how cholesterol changes the arteriosclerotic effects, the clogging of the arteries. We know that it has an impact on vascular dementia, but bad cholesterol, the LDL, also changes how the cells divide. So if you think about your cell replication, and when a cell divides and it takes the chromosomes and makes different pairs, so you have these daughter cells, what happens when you have too much LDL or bad cholesterol now, what they've discovered is that you have an imperfect segregating of those chromosomes. So you have too many, especially of the trisomy 21 chromosomes. You're thinking now, wait a minute, that's Down syndrome, right? Yes. People with Down syndrome have that trisomy 21 from conception, from, throughout their whole life. The newest research on cholesterol, actually they're kind of considering Alzheimer's may be an acquired Down syndrome because of how the LDL is contributing to the replication and improper distribution of these chromosomes.
My gosh,
genetics is a huge area, and brand new research that just came out this week is looking at, it's called CD33, a specific gene, and that's the housekeeper gene, if you will, cleaning up all of the extra stuff, material that's in the brain. And what they're saying is that this CD33, there's too much and it gets hyperactive and it starts killing, it's almost like friendly fire, if you will, cleaning up the good stuff as well as the bad. So and new research all the time.
And it's hopeful. I mean, it is hopeful. That's the thing, that they're, so not to be afraid to go get checked.
Because so many of these, even just the ones that I've just talked about, stress, I didn't talk about stress, stress is another one, insulin, cholesterol, those are modifiable.
They're modifiable. Your lifestyle changes.
That's right. Genes we can't do anything about, but some of this stuff we can.
We can, and that's huge. I have to also, I just want to be sure that I let the audience know, the goal in creating this 4-part series was to give you information and to encourage you to have conversations with your family members and obviously with your physician, and maybe not so obviously with your attorney. You can watch the series in its entirety on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Zita3x3. And I would greatly appreciate your comments on this series. I've never asked for people to actually write, but I am asking you to write to me now, to email me at Zita@zitatv.com, and let me know your comments about the series and if you would like more on this particular subject. And so tonight I do very much want to thank my guest Pam Atwood for 4 times being here with us to share this information.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I want to thank my crew too, and I especially wanted to thank Jim Perry, who is directing for us tonight. And let me close with the words of the author, Brian Tracy, who said, "In life you can never be too kind or too fair. Everyone you meet is carrying a heavy load." So do keep that in mind and join us again next time. Thank you.
Full Bloom is brought to you in part by the following: